I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, Fernanda, Hinze, who is a data scientist at Croud. Fernanda will be sharing insights on how causal AI can lead to better marketing outcomes. Please welcome Fernanda.
So, hello everyone. My name is Fernanda Hinze, as already stated, and I'm a data scientist at Croud. Today I'm going to talk you through how you can be better at marketing using causal AI. So it is related to the last talk that we heard of, not specifically with so much math, but we're definitely going to cover a little bit about incrementality, impacts, and how we measure that our interventions in the markets are actually being leveraged for our campaigns. So I would like to start with a question that we answer to each one of our clients when we start a new process with them. And I would like to ask this question for you guys so you can think of how you would answer it, and I will also go through why is it so complex for you to grasp. It's very easy. Imagine you have 300K in your marketing budget. Now, the question is, how would you spend the money? I know you all look like, well, it's quite obvious. You have already channel options on the screen, and they're not only online, but they're also offline. And it's not, well, the question is not where to spend the money, it's how to spend the money. So you want to focus on the strategy that you want to follow. You want to see if you want to focus on long-term branding, or if you want to focus on immediate conversions. Maybe you even want to focus on the economic situation if you're based in the US and there is like possible political environments affecting your sales. They might also affect your brand efforts. You could also even consider what are the cross-channel effects. So if I were to invest money in, say, YouTube, is that helping my impacts on TikTok as well? So it's not about where to spend it, but how this spending is interacting with each other on different channels. Now, we at Croud have different tools that we can use to answer this question. And you probably also have like personalized tools that you use on your day-to-day basis to decide how to spend your money overall. I'm just going to go through the main three tools that we use nowadays. And I'm going to also explain where we use it and why they're different to each other. It's important to mention that we complement these tools and we do not always use one or the other, but we're trying to look for a more robust framework of how to answer this question for you guys. So yeah, imagine you decided to spend your 300K in 3 channels, say Meta, YouTube, and TikTok. And you would like to also account for these external factors like economic factors, also how your competitors are doing, your pricing at a certain time, even the weather if you want to add it on. Maybe you're selling coats or swimsuits. In that case, you would like to look at the high-level overview of your marketing effectiveness, and you will use what we call a media mix model, or also called MMMs. These models helped us plan on the long term and see if we spent on these 3 channels that we chose, that maybe brand is attributing to 30% of our sales. Brand Meta is attributing to 30% of our sales, YouTube 20%, and TikTok 10%. So we already know which ones are being more effective towards sales. But what if we want to go deeper into each channel? What if we want to see how our campaigns are performing on Meta and then on Facebook? An MMM cannot go that deep into granularity, and that's why we recur to models such as multi-touch attributions, or MTAs. These models help us follow the customer journey from each one of their touch points within your brand. And we can then get more insights on an operational level. What does this mean? Well, if again, we go back to the example of you spend money on Meta, an MTA can tell you if a video ad is being more effective than your picture ads, for example. What an MMM cannot do, but the MTA can solve that question. It also helps you with short-term planning, so you can see your results practically daily, and you can adjust your campaigns depending on the behavior that you're seeing. Now, this all sounds amazing, and if you've ever worked with data, you know that a model can give you very nice numbers, but you have to verify that they're actually aligning with the real world and what is going on with your brand. And that's why we recur normally to experiments. So experiments help us validate the effectiveness of these marketing channels, and they also help us determine that the incrementality that, for example, an MMM is measuring, this 30% attributed to Meta, is actually true. So what we do normally is an A/B test. We stop a certain amount of the money that you're spending on Meta for a certain amount of time, say 4 weeks, and we measure the difference between sales. So if sales dropped by 25%, We actually know that your investment in Meta is not 30% of your sales, but 25. What is interesting about this is that we can use the information given by our experiments to recalibrate our models and make them more precise, for them to be able to then organically help you throughout different touch points in time to make your advertising more effective. So this sounds amazing. And you will probably be telling me, yeah, why do you want to change it if it's already so structured and it probably works? It does work, but it also comes with its limitations. First of all, MMMs, for example, struggle to measure very complex factors. Remember how I told you that investing in Meta can have an effect on investing on TikTok? Well, this type of cross-correlations and cross-channel effects are very hard to identify with an MMM. Also, if you want to distinguish the impact and your return of investment of ongoing brand activities from your brand equity, this is very hard to do with an MMM. You would get an idea of what your underlying demand is, so what would be your demand without any marketing efforts happening, but we cannot really separate how much you've been investing in your brand for the past 5 years versus now. How is that affecting the demand that you already have? That can be a very tricky question to answer, and MMMs do not solve it. Then we can go to MTAs, which, again, they're really powerful, but they overlook external factors. If you want to modify your campaign because, yeah, something happened in the world, like inflation going up a lot, or your sales dropped, you cannot really see those changes on a daily basis, and an MTA cannot help you with that, as well as brand building. Brand building is something that happens on the long term, and with an MTA, you cannot look at those changes in the short term. Experiments, although very important, and we still recommend to use them, they're really, well, first of all, they're really hard to implement. You have to really plan it through. It's not continuous, so an experiment only runs for a certain amount of time, and it only measures for that snapshot in time. And you obviously have revenue risks. When you turn off your marketing, sales can go down, and you can lose money in return of calibrating your other models. Also, if you're investing in Meta, once again, and your impact on sales was very small, for example, 3%, an experiment would struggle to measure the small effects of smaller channels on your sales. So we definitely have a need to find a tool that can help us fill in these gaps and to help us make more faster tactical decision making. And this is exactly where Causal AI comes into play. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the 3 main points of how Causal AI has helped us make our framework more robust, definitely filling in those gaps that other models do not face, and then going through 3 main points of how we've used it on a day-to-day basis. So first of all, using Causal AI definitely helps us understand the market around each one of the brands that we work with. It definitely gets us more into the understanding of the cause and effect things. It's not only about investing in a channel and seeing how this channel performs, but also why this channel is performing the way it's performing. Another very important point here is that it enables us to have faster validation impacts and speeding up this prioritization of incrementality. Why is this important? Well, let's go back to the description of an experiment. Let's say you were investing on LinkedIn ads, but LinkedIn ads is only attributing, again, 1% of your sales. Doing an experiment would be very risky because you know the effect is very small. Also, you need to have results quite fast, and you have no idea what to do. This is where you recur to Causal AI. Causal AI can help you with this type of planning by doing a counterfactual. I think we all know in this room already by this time what a counterfactual is, but I'm going to go through real quick. So a counterfactual is simply getting the scenario of saying, what if I hadn't spent any money on LinkedIn? Imagine doing the experiment but virtually. So Causal AI can help us measure that impact on sales without actually having those revenue risks. And then it can also help us, obviously, to calibrate our other models to make our MMMs and MTAs more accurate for a specific point in time without waiting for the experiment results. Another very important point, and this is the last one on this slide, is it also helps us as a strategic tool. So you probably thought when I first asked you how you would spend your 300K, you were first thinking of options. What if I first spent on YouTube and then on Meta and then on TV ads? Well, what if I actually spent 5% more on TV ads and less on TikTok so I can squeeze in another channel? There are a lot of options that go through your mind, even when you just read the question. So when you're talking about your brand and doing your advertising, this happens as well. But none of the models that I already presented actually answer the question, what if I have done something different? Or what if I had explored another channels in different times? This is exactly what Causal AI helps us the most. So it helps us as a strategic tool to explore all of these scenarios before actually allocating this budget, making sure that our analysis is secure and that, we're gonna have a bigger impact on your sales. How do we do this? Well, we do actually collaborate with causaLens. We collaborate with them through all the three main stages of Causal AI. So we do the causal discovery within their platform, then we go through the causal modeling. We have personalized some functions that the platform has to account for marketing effects that I'm gonna showcase in a second. But we also collaborate a lot with causaLens in the way that we deliver these results to the client. At the end of the day, you can do a lot of maths behind it, and you can try 100 combinations, but if the client doesn't really understand it, it's not gonna have the confidence to put the money in the channels that we are recommending to. So having a very clear dashboard and a way of presenting these robust results is very important for us, and causaLens has helped us with that bit. Let's go through how Croud actually does, implement these things on a day-to-day basis. I would like to focus first on what a causal graph is. We already had a small explanation, but mainly a causal graph is a map of all the relationships that we can have from starting investing in a channel till we actually get revenue out of a sale. So imagine you're investing on media channels, and you have a media channel strategy on the top. By investing in these channels, obviously this is a cost for you. So we're affecting on this side of the graph, but by investing on it, again, you're getting impressions. We call an impression when someone sees an ad. That interaction, the first interaction that you get with it, it's an impression. So more people are now knowing about your product. Also, you have underlying demands going on. So the demand is also affecting, depending on how many people are seeing the ad to generate more impressions, but also in terms of economic, how the economic markets move. If supply goes up, demand goes up. So if your competitors are investing more, then your ad is probably going to cost less. We have to account for those type of interactions when we go from demand to cost. But that would be only the first stage of deciding to put your money in a channel. From there on, you get an impression. Someone saw an ad that is amazing. Your brand had a little bit of image out there. And then someone could actually click on an ad if we're talking about digital markets. If they click on an ad, probably they're going to go through your webpage and they're going to complete a sale. But we cannot say that that sale is 100% attributed to your media channels, because that would be unrealistic. We know that other things are affecting too, like pricing, promotions, and even other economic factors like interest rates. So we do account for all of these interactions to go into our sales variable. And from there, we can actually predict how revenue could look like. Why is this different than the other tools that I mentioned? First, it's not static. And all of these connections can be personalized for our clients. So this can be as specific and granular as we would like to go. Great, Fernanda, but now what do I do with this causal graph? It looks amazing, it makes sense, great story behind it, but what do I actually do out of this? So when you do a causal graph in causaLens platform, it looks like this. And what we've done at Croud is we have taught the model, or we have personalized the functions that the model uses to account for specific marketing dynamics that we know with all of our years of experience that need to be there. In particular, we account for ad stock effects and saturation effects. Ad stock effects is nothing more than seeing an ad, for example, on TV. And when you see this ad on TV, you don't really go right at that second to your phone and buy the product that you're seeing. You wait 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and that sale can be then attributed to that particular ad 3 weeks later, not in the moment that the impression was generated. We need the model to learn that there's a lag effect between one and the other. Another very important point, is saturation, as well as in any other economic factors. when you invest on a channel, you cannot invest eternally to get eternal returns. There comes a point in which you're optimizing your spend on each channel to get the maximum return of investment out of it. And that's also something that we want the model to learn. So what we've done very quickly is between the variables that we call nodes, these edge functions have now, well, we managed to combine these two effects so that they don't react linearly, but they react with these diminishing return effects. Last but not least, our budget optimization and scenario planning. As I was telling you before, you're all thinking about what-if scenarios, but it could be very overwhelming to see them all at once. So having a very clear dashboard on how to present results can be critical. In this case, let's go again through the scenario we've been talking about all this time. You have 5 different marketing channels, and you've already investing in them. What would happen if you change your investment in a certain percentage? The cool thing about our dashboards is that you can look at the baseline, how it's actually working right now, versus the scenario that you're planning in a live form. You can also see immediately how much it's going to cost you, or how less, how much money you're saving, the revenue that you could have, and even the profit that you can get from these strategies. So I hope that I now have convinced you that using Causal AI as a complement for all of these tools can actually enhance your strategy decision making and can actually make your marketing way, way more accurate. If you want to come talk to us, we're going to be around for the Croud Analytics team. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Fernanda. There's a lot of questions coming through as we went through that.
That's great. I have support. So let's see.
We'll give a few of them. Actually, I'll go with the first one that came through. It was right at the start of your talk. Many big brands rely on MMM to measure long-term brand investment.
Yeah.
If you say MMM struggles with this measurement, what would you recommend they use?
I think it's not a matter of choosing one model or the other, but if you're complementing your MMM with Causal AI, you can start to distinguish the baseline, the baseline effect and the brand equity effect, especially in the long term. So what happens is when you're doing an MMM and you're investing on brand awareness, this brand awareness after a certain time, it becomes just demand, underlying demand, because people just know your brand. Let's talk about big companies like Apple or Bosch. So this type of brand awareness that is now underlying demand is what I mean when I say that MMM struggle dividing it. When you're first building it, it's measurable. It's also not easy to do, but if you would complement it then with Causal AI to start to divide the impact of one channel with another on different time frames, it can help you out comprehend when your brand becomes part of your underlying demand and when it follows through. If
Good
it makes
answer,
sense.
thank you. So in the work you've been doing there, how long did it take you to go from data to insights in a causal AI augmented approach versus the traditional experimentation-based approach you were doing?
That's easy to answer. An experiment can, depending on the effect that you want to measure, is how long your experiments need to last. So if you were aiming for example, a measurable desired effect of 20% for a certain brand, it could take you 4 weeks, 5 weeks, even 8 weeks. With Causal AI, if your data is already clean and you understand what you want to go through, it could take you 3 weeks to get already insights if you're starting from scratch. If you already have a model built in, it could take you even less, a week.
That's good. How have you handled time lags in your causal effects?
Timelines.
Time lags.
Okay. So there's 2 approaches that we've been trying with Causal AI. There is the time series effect, the time series models, where you follow the causal graph the way that I showed you, but you try to account for how your ad affected this week versus how your ad has affecting next week and in 3 months. We've realized that it's very hard sometimes to get the model to learn these diminishing returns if you have a lot of nodes through time. So that's what we decided to stick with the non-time series approach on causaLens and rather modify the edge functions instead of having a lot of nodes.
Thank you. I'm just going to make a general call out there. If you're there's loads of questions. You can vote them up and down as well. So, which helps me a lot because I'll be asking the ones at the top. So here we go. So the the top ranked question at the moment. How do you handle a situation where your MMM and MTA disagree with each other?
Well, that would be very hard because you're trying to answer different questions with both models. But if they're disagreeing, then you definitely would rely a little bit more on your experiment side and see what actually is going on in the world. What's your brand doing? What variables have you missed? If you're talking about an MMM, there might be an external factor that can be as simple, again, as weather that might change your whole way of looking at the contributions of the channels. For the MTA, same way. So you might be missing some touch points of your client that might give more or less weight to other variables.
Got it.
Yeah.
This is actually a question that's come up for almost every talk, which is how do you evaluate your causal model?
Oh, well, that's simple. If I go back, can I go back? Yeah, great. So if we look at the triangle, we're not saying that causal AI is substituting experiments. We're saying that causal AI is complementing the tools that we already have. So all of the experiments, all of the tools that you see on the bottom, they do need to be verified at least once with an experiment. Hence, the experiment is on the top. So you do need to do at least one experiment at the beginning when you're doing your first causal graph to validate it. But the advantage of it is once you validate it, it can hold true for a longer period of time because your data is going to be giving that information instead of an MMM or an MTA that needs more experiments, or more often.
Good answer, thank you. I'm going to ask one last question, the one that is at the top, and I didn't plant it, just in case anybody thought this. What do you think is the biggest value from using the causaLens platform, and how does it compare to building with open source?
Well, I would though this I'm gonna answer personally here, but I think the most valuable thing that we get from the platform is that you can personalize the functions so easily. So it is a learning curve at the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, because there's a lot of information going on. But once you get the idea of where the functions are affecting the variables and how, it's easier for you to personalize the way that the model is learning. So if you've ever done a linear regressor or a linear regression model, for example, you cannot really modify how the model learns the betas and the alphas, or the variables that you're getting out of it. But you can do that with causal AI. You can modify and get a little bit deeper into how it learns and from which functions it learns to make it more accurate for your specific case.
That is brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Fernanda.
No, you're welcome.